What is up, everybody? I am back. Um, I know I've been gone for a long time. I haven't uploaded a video on this channel since New Year's Eve, I think. Um, but I think it's really time for me to kind of tell the truth. Um, I am maybe not as happy as I sometimes come across, on this channel. Um, I have some real issues, and I'm good at parading around and acting like things are better than they actually are. Because frankly, things are not always that great, and I'm not always doing great, you know. Um, I, Truth be told, I have been spiraling for a long time. I've been, I've been in a place for a long time, for several years, actually. About a decade, probably. Since I was a teenager, since I was probably about 17, 18 years old, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I've just been kind of trying to find myself, you know? And it's like I get these spurts of motivation, these random times where I get manic and I come on YouTube a lot of the time and I try to make myself out to be like this fucking, motivational speaker, uh, motivational speaker slash philosopher type of thing, and it doesn't always translate very well. I definitely know what videos of mine I prefer and which ones I don't like. I'm not always I'm not always honest with myself. I don't think. It's not that I am a liar to like other people necessarily. I lie to myself a lot and I try to pretend like everything's good when it's not good. Um, and I when I watch some of my old videos back, I kind of cringe a little bit because it's like I'm I, it feels like theater. It feels like a performance. And I've been thinking a lot about like happiness, right? For instance, I've thought about happiness a lot recently, and I've kind of been trying to redefine what that is and what that looks like for me because I I think maybe I need to broaden my definitions a little bit. You know, I I get wrapped up in the idea that materialism will make me happy. And what I mean by that is like if I make X amount of dollars, I'll be happy. Um, if I'm living in this place doing this thing, if only things were just the way that I wanted them, if I could just bend everything to my will and make everything ideal, then I would be happy, And that's why I think I need to stop with the doom scrolling. That's probably the biggest factor in me being as miserable as I am. I have internet addiction, I used to think that when I was younger, I used to think that the pornography was like the reason that I was so like mentally ill. And I was like, if I can quit watching porn, then I'll be happy. But the porn addiction for a long time, it wasn't even the main problem. It was a symptom of a greater issue. And that greater issue was my internet addiction, because I was an internet junkie before I became a porn addict. The porn addiction came later. But when I was really young, like as young as 12, I was already an internet addict. I spent all of my time on YouTube. Because I mean anybody my age, I mean I'm 28. We were raised on the internet. We my generation, I'm right on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. I'm like right there in that I'm right there in that like gray area, right on the cusp. And it's interesting because we came up in a time where the internet was just starting to become really popular. You know, it wasn't quite what it is today, but it was on a meteoric rise. Because YouTube was created like 2005, I think, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. I was in first grade, I think. So I grew up on the internet, but I grew up in a time where I witnessed the internet go through a lot of changes. And I've noticed really over the past 5 years or so a lot of flexing. A lot of these internet grifters with the Lambos and the Bugattis and the fucking, the Andrew Tates of the world. A lot of that started to become pretty popular. Buy my course, buy my course and get rich, you know, that kind of thing. And witnessing this and having been an internet addict, to begin with, I I quickly kind of became entranced a little bit, especially over the past couple of years, because it was like, I see all these kids, these young kids who are like millionaires driving around in Lambos and fucking Bugattis and Porsches and Ferraris and shit. I'm seeing this and I'm looking at my life and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, I work a dead end job making next to nothing. I'm a college dropout. I'm poor. I'm in debt. I live with my mother. I'm, as an adult, I'm always embarrassed to talk about it because it's a sensitive subject for me. And I know that when I talk about being an adult and living with my parents, it's hard for me to make myself vulnerable in that way because I know how people are. I'm going to get flack for it. It's fine. I'm seeing all of this and I'm seeing these kids like 22, 23, younger than me, with all of this shit. And I'm looking around and I'm like, man, where did my life go wrong? You know, I don't have anything. I don't have anything to my name. I don't have a pot to piss in. And these kids are like 24, 25, and they're living it up. They're living out of mansions and they're driving around these fucking sports cars and all of this shit. And I got really depressed because I felt like, I'm like, my life doesn't stack up to what they have. Um, and it broke me in a way where I was like, okay, well, I know what I want to do for a living. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to make music. I want to do those two things. And I have got to make a lot of money doing those things. I got to hustle and I got to hustle and I got to hustle. Because if I don't hustle with this and upload every single day and do what I need to do, then I'm never going to be rich like these people over here. I'm not going to have the nice cars and the houses, and I'm not going to have all of that because you know, I don't want to continue to be a loser because I saw myself as a loser. I'm like, I live this mediocre life where I get up and go to work every day. It's the same routine. I live in this room in my parents' house and I'm just not happy because I don't have what they have. I'm looking at, all of this from an outsider's perspective. And, the internet has a way of making things look very flashy and look, look perfect and look ideal. It twists and it warps your perception. And what I failed to realize at the time, what I failed to realize for a long time, is that just because people have a lot of money, that doesn't make them happy necessarily. You can't just buy happiness. There's a lot of people who have money who are completely fucking miserable and hate their lives. And for me, being someone who's autistic, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that because I see things as being very black and white. There's not a whole lot of gray area a lot of times in my world. There's not, it's hard for me to see the nuance in things because I get wrapped up in thinking about, well, if I had that amount of money, I wouldn't be unhappy. Yeah, I mean, for a while, for a good, really the past couple of years, I off and on, because it's sporadic. Happiness is fleeting. It comes and it goes. But for a long time, over the past couple of years, I've been completely fucking miserable. I've just been unhappy all the time, quietly unhappy all the time. And I come on the internet trying to parade around and act like I'm more happy than I actually am and pretend like everything is fine when it's not fine. And I I've had a hard time really defining it. I'm like, what is it that's really making me miserable? Because I was like, well, that's easy. I'm a almost 30-year-old guy living with his mother who has no money. I mean, obviously that's what it is. And then I was like, well, I need to change that. So, I got this job working with MAU because I was like, well, if I'm gonna move out of my parents' house, I need to have money, right? I need to have enough money saved up. I need to get myself right financially. And then, obviously I fucking hate the job. That's a given. I've hated every job I've ever worked, all of them. I've never had a job that I enjoyed, ever, for any reason at any time. But I gotta work, I have to work, I have to make a living. Um, and I, I'm just now at my age starting to come to grips with the fact that in life, it doesn't matter who you are and what your occupation is, you don't get to do everything you want all the time. I used to think that, rich people just they got to do whatever they wanted because they had the money to do it. And a lot of rich people work very, very hard, you know, and they've had to make sacrifices to get where they are, and sacrifices that I have not necessarily been willing to make or wanted to make. A lot of rich people are very stressed out all the time. They have a lot of anxiety, performance anxiety in particular. Um, and you never really know what somebody's life is like until you step into their shoes. There's a lot of rich kids my age or younger who would see the things that I have, certain things in my life that I have, family, friends, certain things that I have that have nothing to do with money. And they would be envious. They'd be like, this guy has the best mom in the world. This guy has this beautiful girlfriend that loves him very, very much, who, would give him the world, is giving him the world. This guy has people in his life who love him and genuinely care about him, you know, and I had to go create my own family because my family's never believed in me. There's people who have acquired the amount of wealth that I've been describing, who would say those things. Um, and mind you, I've never met any of these people. I've never met any of these people. I've never talked to any of these people. I don't know a single person who owns a Lamborghini. No one. Not a single one, not personally. I've never talked to anybody who has been able to acquire that amount of wealth. So it's like, how am I supposed to know how they feel? Um, it's like I just assume I make a lot of assumptions based on what I'm seeing through a screen, surface level wise, but I don't really know what goes on with them in their life. Because I know objectively that there are rich people who hate their life, who are genuinely miserable. There are rich people who kill themselves. That was hard for me to grasp because I'm looking at it from the perspective of like, well, if I had that amount of money, then I wouldn't want to kill myself. I would love my life. And I think my biggest problem is that I measure my amount of happiness based on the material success of other people. And that's a dangerous game because there's always going to be somebody who's going to have more than you, regardless of where you are. Always, even when you get to the top, there's people who, even if you manage to get to the top of the financial ladder, you know, there's always going to be somebody that's going to have more than you. It doesn't matter how high you go. There's always people who have more. And I think that my biggest issue is that I never compare myself to the person that I was yesterday. I never compare myself to people who have less than me either. It's always people who have more than me. But there's people out there with less than me who would kill to have what I have, that would trade lives with me in a second. But I've been so blinded by this pursuit of monetary success that I don't I don't always see the good things that I have right in front of me. It's okay to want to be successful. It's a good thing, but at the same time, I think if it costs you, if it robs you of your joy, if it robs you of connection with other human beings and if it takes you away from community and camaraderie, then it's a problem. You know, if it completely takes you away from your family and your friends and your, like I said, your community and the the joys of life that have nothing to do with money, then it doesn't mean much of anything. um, but for a long time, I just didn't see that. I couldn't wrap my head around how somebody could be poor and happy at the same time. It just didn't make sense. But now I'm starting to see it because I finally have this good paying job, this really good paying job that has benefits and security and all of this. And, you know, I woke up one day and I realized that I'm not much happier than I was when I was so broke I couldn't feed myself. And when I came to that realization that in some ways I look at those times as the good old days when I was just piss broke and depressed and getting high all the time, and it's a whole another thing. But when I was at that period, at that point in my life, there were certain things where I look back and I'm like, oh, actually, this was kind of cool, or I liked doing this and knowing these people, and I had, When I realized that there was only really a slight bump in my happiness at a certain point, then the wheels started to kind of turn, and I was like, what is really going on here? Is it really my living situation? Is it really the money? Is it really my job? What is it that's really fucking with me? Because those things are all things that you can change with effort, with time. And I knew that. I knew that. But I still continued to self sabotage. I still continued to do the same things that were keeping me stuck and keeping me where I was. Because what I would do is I would start to grind and hustle and work really, really, really fucking hard. And then I would just implode. I would just completely fucking fall apart. And it just became a cycle where I'd start to steamroll. I'd get, I'd start to build some momentum and then I'd stop. I build momentum and then I stop. I build momentum and then I stop. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what's really happening here? Like, why do I do this to myself? What is the reason? What is the real reason? And it's because I chase success for the wrong reasons. I was looking at it from the lens of I'm doing this so that I can make financial, so that I can make money. I'm doing this so that I can make money. That was the goal. That was the purpose. Not I'm doing this because I love it. Not even because I want to be, stable. Get to a place where I'm financially stable. Not because I want to build community, with the YouTube and with my music and stuff. Not because I want to build communities with, be in communities around like-minded people, or not because I want to do something that fulfills my soul and makes me feel good about myself. It was all about the money. It was I want to acquire as much wealth as I possibly can so that I don't have to work anymore and I can just, live life and travel and it was more about how other people looked at me. If other people don't see me as a loser, then I'm winning. If society deems me a loser, if they think I'm a loser, if they think I'm a failure, then they must be right. They must be correct. If they don't see me that way, then I'll be happy. Then I'll feel fulfilled within myself. Even if I'm lonely, even if I have no friends and, I have nobody around me, even if I'm alone, as long as I have my money, I'll be good. It's not true. I was lied to. I was bamboozled. I was tricked because there are things in my life, and there's people in my life that money can't buy, that money cannot buy, that money will never be able to buy. And I was just wrong. And I'm glad that the wheels have finally started to turn, because it's like, do I want to be financially stable? Yes. Do I want to be happy in that sense? Yeah. But the whole idea that I need to have millions of dollars in order to be happy is just nonsense. It's just not true. You don't need excess wealth in order to live a happy life. What you do need is family and friends. What you do need is people in your life who love you. What you do need is to have things in your life that you enjoy doing. Passion projects and hobbies and, being able to go on vacations and have fun, to just have fun with life. Money is important, but money is not everything. It's extremely important. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't have money or that you shouldn't make money or pursue money. I'm not saying that. Obviously, you should. And it is very important. It is. You need money in order to survive. But it is not the be all and end all. It's not, because You know, if you're broke, you can always change that. You can always change your financial situation. What you can't change is the past. You can't buy time. You know, you can't buy a more time with your family or your friends. You can't buy back yesterday. You know, and you also can't buy love. Real love, genuine love, authentic love. You can't buy it. It's not something that you can just, you know, put some money on and obtain it that way. Like, it just doesn't work that way. You can't buy real affection from people. You can buy fakeness from people, but you can't buy the real thing. Um, a few, I forget how long ago it was. I think it was a couple of years ago now. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. I made a video that I cringe at now when I look back at it. I don't even know if it's still on my channel anymore, but it's called Money Does Equal Happiness. And I'm literally like saying the exact opposite of what I'm saying right now. It just goes to show you how much I've matured and grown as a person. You know, I was trying to, again, embody something I wasn't. Um, just pretending to be a person that I wasn't for a long time, you know. But anyway, that's where I've been. I hope that I could give you all some clarity and an explanation as to why I come on YouTube and I make videos for a long time and then I disappear and then I come back and then I disappear and I come back and I disappear. I hope that I could provide you all with with a reason for that. Um, Instead of like just coming on here and trying to make excuses for it. I love you all so much. Anybody who still watches me. And you know, as always, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed this video. If you did not enjoy this video, then you can obviously kiss my ass and eat it while you're at it. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace, love, and light.